Now we're going to talk a little bit more about social institutions. So what are social institutions? They are, it is a pattern, norm, role, or value structured to meet social needs and to contribute to social order by governing behavior. Social institutions provide predictability and organization to societies, and some social institutions we'll discuss more in depth are marriage, family, alternatives to traditional family, as they put it, education, and religion. So social institutions can be any of the above. They can be family, it can be a group of people, it can be education, like a system, it can be religion, like an organization. So the word institution is it's very broad. So the first one we will talk about is marriage, and marriage can structure families in different ways. There are different types of marriages that people engage in. So the first one is monogamy, and that's when two individuals are married to each other and only each other. So monogamy obviously is super popular in Western culture, in modern Western culture, because actually throughout most of human history, monogamy was not the preferred sexual system. Just a fun fact. So apart from monogamy, we have polygamy, which refers to when an individual is married to multiple partners. And within polygamy, there are certain distinctions. So polygyny refers to marriage in which a man is married to multiple women, which is the form of polygamy that you would probably see most often. And notice GYN as in female, so that'll help you remember that. Poly meaning multiple. So that's when the man is married to multiple women. And the other one is polyandry, which is when one woman is married to multiple men. And again, poly meaning multiple, and the andro, meaning male. So marriage, sexual behavior, and the extension of the family from marriage differ widely across cultures, like we were just saying. And that sort of goes back to the social constructionism, how everything is a social construct. So it's constructed from your society. It's sort of this interconnected back and forth. We structure society and society structures us. So the next social institution is family. The exact definitions of kinship are debated often in sociology, but for the purpose of the MCAT, we can describe it as how we think about or define our relationships with other individuals. Kin is a word that you will hear to describe like closer relationships. So kin do not necessarily have to be biological. Normally we'll use the word kin to describe family members, brother, sister, cousins, aunts, uncles. We would use the word kin, but they don't necessarily have to be biological. So close friends, godparents, community members, they could all be considered someone's kin. In a patriarchy, men have more authority than women. Pretty self-explanatory. A lot of cultures, especially traditional Western cultures, are very patriarchal. In a matriarchy, women have more authority than men. I know there are a lot of Native American cultures that have a matriarchal structure. And in an egalitarian family, men and women are equal in authority. And we sort of see this shift from patriarchy to egalitarian in the modern day, and it seems like it's sort of trending that way, which is a good thing because men and women that are in an egalitarian relationship tend to suffer less stress from things that are due to gender roles. So experiences of family members or the family as a whole can contribute to family violence, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it's important mentioning. So this family violence, it takes different forms. Obviously, the specific forms, there could be child abuse, which is when the parents abuse their children, domestic abuse, which is when one partner abuses the other, and elder abuse, obviously, which is when a person that is younger takes advantage of and abuses someone who is older. Okay, the next social institution is alternatives to traditional families. Divorce is becoming more prevalent in the United States. This could be due to the continuing secularization of mainstream thought. the growing social and financial independence of women, or lessening legal barriers. So traditionally in the United States, divorce wasn't super popular just because of religious reasons and whatnot. But now, because of secularization and just the broadening of mainstream thought, divorce is obviously becoming more common. Cohabitation is when two people are in a romantic relationship and they live together, but they're not married. So this has also risen in the US for pretty much the same reason. Those who cohabitate may have children and may almost live almost identically to a married couple. So it's basically the same thing as a married couple. They're just not married for whatever reasons. For religious reasons, some people don't believe in marriage. Some people just don't want to get married at all. But that's considered an alternative to traditional families, even though it would probably be almost exactly the same as a traditional family if it was two people and children. And then we have LGBTQ plus relationships, which are also becoming more common, just as the visibility, representation in the media of LGBTQ plus members and the acceptance of the community in mainstream increases. So in these relationships, obviously, would hope that this doesn't have to be said, but partners often raise children and share finances like in heterosexual relationships. And many countries around the world legally recognize gay marriage now. So there's sort of some blurred lines between alternatives to traditional families and just a family. But I guess it's important to know all of the different classifications, and it's important to know the concepts. Okay. So education is another institution. So these educational institutions are those that provide structure, knowledge, and a status increase to those already educated. So structure, obviously, children that are growing up will learn discipline from school. Knowledge is what we all know why we go to school for, and a status increase to the already educated would be like if you got your undergrad degree and you wanted to go to med school for an MD. That would be a status increase because our society holds degrees and knowledge. It assigns them merit. So it's an important thing. So we would have a status increase if we had a prestigious, say, 4-year degree or 10 years of school ahead of us. So schools also have latent functions like socialization and maintenance of social order. Socialization, obviously, they do learn social skills, but a lot of the socialization that occurs is sort of a byproduct. And maintenance of social order. A lot of nation's curriculum is definitely, if you take a look at it, it's definitely rooted to maintain social order. Schools transmit the dominant culture to their students. Students will learn about language, holidays, traditions, events, and historical figures. So it's not just, school is not just a place where children and students learn objective fact. The schools transmit culture to them as well. So we learn language, everything that I just mentioned, we learn all of our cultural aspects in school as well. Aside from learning the manifest curriculum, manifest at this point you should know means obvious or explicit, students will also learn the hidden curriculum. So these are implicit communications from the institution about a value or a norm. So for example, a school that gives more time to reading and math than it does to science and social studies reinforces the idea that math and reading are more important. So that's something implicit. No teacher is going to go up to them and say, reading is more important, so we're going to give it more time. They would say something like, we have so much material to learn in this class that we need more time than others. But that's pretty implicitly implied that since there's more curriculum for reading, that you should obviously devote more of your time. It's obviously more important. So that's what the hidden curriculum is. It's basically everything you learn that is not explicitly taught to you. So the educational quality correlates positively with socioeconomic status, leading to an informal type of educational segregation. And we'll talk about socioeconomic status a little bit once we get to stratification. But stratification does reach education, and we can see that there are pretty solid lines that are drawn. So children from lower income neighborhoods receive poorer educations. They are much less likely to pursue a 4-year degree, and they are more likely to end up at lower paying jobs than children from wealthy neighborhoods. Okay. So religion is considered another social institution. So organized religions are based on behaviors and attitudes that are regarded as sacred or worthy of reverence. So that's a very loose definition of what religion is, and there are so many, there are just such different, diverse religions that it's very hard to categorize all of them with one single definition. But there are multiple forms of religious organization. So the first one is ecclesia, and that is a religious organization which dominates a society as the only acceptable religion. So usually there is no tolerance for other religions. It's usually integrated into the society's government. A lot of ancient cultures were like this. We even have some cultures today that do it. I believe Sweden has an official church. They're a Lutheran state. Same thing with Iran. They are an Islamic state. And yeah, it's pretty much just one dominant religion. So a church is a religious organization that is noticeably present in a society. So it is very prevalent in society, but it's not the singular religion. And there is tolerance for other religions where a church is normally. So members are typically born into the church, but converts are also accepted. And for ecclesia, I should also mention that all members are born into it, and there's no, you can't opt out. There's no option to not be a part of it normally. So they have a well-stipulated rules and are concerned, this is the church again, and they are concerned about both the sacred and ordinary aspects of life. So they usually have rules to follow. Christianity has the 10 Commandments, obviously, and they have a couple of different sets of ways to live your life. A sect is a distinct religious group separated from society. So they usually develop from another religious organization. They usually like branch out from another religious organization and form their own sort of sect. And they may eventually become other churches. So the Amish, for example, up in Pennsylvania are an example of a sect. They sort of live separately. And Mormons, I saw also were an example of a sect. They split off from Christianity. And it's interesting because that they seem to be in the process of becoming a church. Technically, it's considered the Church of Latter-day Saints, but at one point it could have been a sect, and now it's sort of integrating into life and becoming fitting the definition of a church more. Denominations they could fall within any of them, honestly. It's probably going to fall within ecclesia and church because sects and cults are smaller, which we'll talk about. But ecclesia and church are usually parts of larger organizations. And we're going to go over on the next slide, we're going to go over the 5 main religions of the world. So denominations usually have to be, from a large religion, and that's usually one of the first 2. So we talked about sect. And then a cult, just really quickly, is a religious group. This is the definition that lies far outside the cultural norm and may dominate an individual's life, and usually does. Okay. So now we have the 5 major world religions. The first one we'll talk about is Christianity, which is the largest faith in the world, with about 30% of the world population practicing it. So it is a monotheistic religion. And it believes in prophets, the main one being Jesus as the son of their God, an afterlife, and a judgment day. Islam, very similarly, the second largest religion in the world, about 20 to 25% of the world population practices it. And very similarly to Christianity, it is a monotheistic religion. There's the belief of Allah. The religion also believes in prophets as well. So Muhammad is considered the last prophet. And it also believes in an afterlife and a judgment day as well. Hinduism is practiced by about 14% of the world's population, and it was developed in India. They believe in many gods, I think hundreds. It's a polytheistic religion. Again, poly meaning many, theistic, theism meaning God, so many gods. And it holds great value in the process of reincarnation, which is rebirth after death. So Buddhism was also developed in India, and Buddhism really places heavy importance on meditation and the practice of letting go of physical and material pleasures. You can definitely look these religions over again if you want a little bit more in depth of them. For the MCAT, you probably do not have to go much more in depth than what's on this slide, but you're more than welcome to look. Judaism is also one of the 5 major world religions. It's practiced only by about 0.22% of the world's population. And it is also a monotheistic religion, and it was the precursor for Christianity and Islam. So basically, this religion is that a man named Abraham made a covenant with God, and that Abraham would have a bunch of children and would create this divine nation for God. And that's the very, very general, brief gist of those 5 religions. Because obviously you could talk for days about each of them. Right, so the polls are open. They are anonymous, so give it your best shot and we will regroup in a minute and discuss. All right, so 100% of you said D, which thank God. So all the following could probably be considered kin, except you're basically just looking for an unfamiliar person, someone who is not closely joined to a community with you. Your godmother would be, your sibling definitely would be, and a first cousin also would definitely be considered kin. Waiter at a new restaurant, if it's new, you probably don't know him. He's not kin. Simple enough.